when we say, when we talk about what a more meaningfully economically free society would be like, right? That like this is something where I've always thought, right? I haven't always been sure, right? As I've read some of your pieces over the years, right? You know, it's extremely rare that I ever read an Eric Levitt's thing that I actually disagree with. I mean, there have actually definitely been times when Bhaskar Singh Karl asked me to write something for Jacobin, and I'll get ready and I'll start researching it, and I'll do some Google searches on relevant things. It's like, oh, okay, Eric already wrote that, right? You know, it's like I really don't need to write this. But if there is a core difference, right? Like what I always kind of took it to be about, right, is what that sort of you know, telos of left politics, you know, would end up being, right? You know, that you know, as much as obviously, you know, we're hilariously far from having this problem right now, right? That like, you know, we just kicked this off by talking about, you know, the increasing authoritarianism of the Trump administration and ways that even like preserving what's left of public sector unions, you know, is a in some ways like is a challenging thing under these circumstances. But if we did kind of push social democracy to the limits of what you could do under capitalism, you know, we're in the sort of situation that we're in like maybe Sweden in the 70s, where there had been really deep, extensive social democratic reforms, and you sort of got to the point where you either had to push those further and take on questions of ownership, right? You know, so the minor plan that they were floating at the time would have involved sort of slowly taking shares of corporations into the hands of worker-controlled funds in order to do some kind of, you know, slow motion expropriation. And so I'd always kind of assumed that if there was a big difference between us in terms of large-scale worldview, it would have been about whether to see something like that as both possible and desirable, right? Or to think, okay, basically social democracy is what we can do, and we shouldn't even really worry about anything else. But I think communicated with you enough, communicated with you a bit leading up to you coming on the show. I'm no longer like that clear on that, right? I think there might be a coat of red under the paint there that I wasn't necessarily seeing before.
Yeah, I mean, I think I pretty much identify as a socialist. I just I have some views on, you know, some judgments about tactics and about the Democratic Party that would cause a decent number of socialists to take umbrage at me describing myself that way. And so I'm not that invested in labels. So if they want to have it, that's fine with me. But as far as like, yeah, I mean, I think that it would be good to collectivize capital ownership. I don't think that, you know, anyone should have, whatever. Right now, the way that passive income is distributed, you know, it doesn't make much sense. It's hard to justify why, you know, someone, you know, who happened to inherit a Vanguard account or whatever should get a certain, you know, thousands of dollars a year. And well, the great mass of the population doesn't collect anything off of the production we collectively generate. So, I mean, in terms of like the logic of it, I totally affirm the socialist principles. I do think that given where we are right now, where we haven't even gotten to a 20th century welfare state, we don't even have a fucking universal healthcare. It just seems to me a little self-indulgent to get too into that, especially to the extent that it fractures people, because like we need to, right now the left broadly defined is such a small percentage of this country that I don't think we can afford to splinter that much on this question, you know, to the extent that there are people who are social democrats, but who don't want to affirm that next step. I think we don't need to really worry about that too much right now. But
yeah. I don't know, Djene, what are your thoughts?
Well, you know, I generally agree with sort of Eric. You know, coming from Britain, which has healthcare at least, and you know, dealing with the American healthcare system is one of the most difficult things for someone coming from Europe to deal with, because A, it's both irrational, and the way that people defend it as like being a great system, it's like, bro, I've been like in Britain, I've been in Turkey, in Istanbul has better healthcare for the average citizen than the United States. So, you know, like storming the commanding heights of wokeness and the means of productions, all great. But America is such an atomized society. There's libertarianism. You know, one of the big differences between Turkey and America is that libertarianism doesn't exist in developing countries, because just on a basic level, people realize it's idiotic, right? But it has such a hegemony here that, you know, people are willing to go to, you know, willing to die, you know, to preserve a system which is utterly irrational. So I tend to agree with Eric in the sense that, you know, all these like great ideas for like the, you know, the socialist future are great, but we're at such a low level here in the United States, barely, you know, maintaining the pathetic welfare state we have now, that, you know, having these like big discussions about whether we're going to go full socialism and have a workers' cooperative or a centrally planned economy, I just don't think that makes sense to most people, and I think it's a needlessly divisive argument to have.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly don't want to excommunicate or be unwelcoming, you know, to people who don't have the same long-term horizons that I do. I want to maybe convince them over the long term, you know, that they should, right? You know, but certainly work together. Right now, I guess to me, what I see as the most important short-term thing is divisive, though, right? Is about like sort of promoting, you know, a relatively aggressive, like social democratic current, you know, that anything that we can get going right now, and frankly, heightening the contradictions between that and liberal centrism, right? You know, you know, because I think if we're a very, very long way away from even being able to achieve those things, right? But I think in order to make even that a possibility, we do need to do some of that. But anyway, my point is that you're both dead to me, and you're expelled from the fraternity of gentlemen with beards and glasses. But in all seriousness, really enjoyed the discussion. Really hope to have you both on in the future. So yeah, thank you again.
Thank you so much for having me.